What's up, guys? I'm Kyle, also known as the Panda Man. In today's video, I'm going to tell you how you can free yourself from ever having to count your calories again. So counting calories stinks. Let me preface this a few ways. You can learn a lot by monitoring your food to a high degree. I did that for years. When I first started out and I had my sights set on doing a bodybuilding show, I tracked everything. Now, this is before apps and all that nonsense, whatever makes it easier, right? Before all that jazz, though. And I would use a nutrition almanac. I would weigh everything out. Everything was written down in my journal. Everything, macros. I would learn about the micronutrients because each piece of food in the nutrition almanac had to break down the micronutrients, all this stuff, all the way down to like the single digits. Like if I had 4,141 calories, like I took it all the way down to that. So I learned a ton, right? I learned how to eyeball stuff. And it was tedious. It was not fun. I did that for years. And it wasn't a sustainable way to live. Did not find it enjoyable. Now, in my book, the best-selling book, The Panda Diet, I talk about this. One of the things that I highlighted in there is when I did this thing called the cycle diet. Just to give you an example of how the calorie math does not work out. On a cycle diet, I would be in these super compensation states. And I noticed that I would get into this state after a bodybuilding show where I could not get full. Now, the first time I competed in bodybuilding, to kind of give you some backstory, I was on about 1,600 calories for essentially 4 months straight. The only cheat meal I had was the coach allowed me to have a little bit of honey the last Sunday before the next Saturday show. Imagine that. That was it. That was my cheat. The week after that show, I put on about 35 pounds in 1 week. Not muscle. Didn't feel good. I turned my body into a fat storing and water hoarding machine. After doing this very hard caloric cut and doing a lot of junk cardio on top of my lifting. But that state after the show where you can't get full is super compensation. You can just keep eating and eating. You got a bottomless pit. Now you combine that with the fact that I have a legendary voracious appetite and look out. So as the years went on, I would play around with my cheat days, even when I wasn't competing. Okay, I want to have my brownie Sunday, cookie Sunday, which I still do every Sunday night. You know, I enjoy it. Pizza, big giant Sunday. And I put that in the program more for psychological reasons. But the cycle diet, it was physiological. You needed it. Coach Scott Abel really kind of told me the ins and outs, but you needed that to keep the system running, the nervous system running. When you do these crash diets and these hard caloric cuts, your system starts to shut down. Metabolic rate starts to come down to match what you're putting in when you're feeding yourself frequently in a cut. Immune system function down-regulated. Reproductive system, like your sex drive will go down. All this stuff. It's trying to conserve energy. So to offset that, we would have these massive cheat days where I do between 15 and 25,000 calories on a cheat day. You heard that right. Now, can I do that now? Not even close. You got to be in a specific metabolic profile, super lean, big deficits. So you're really trying to drive up ghrelin, right? One of your main hunger hormones. Now, with that too, that's kind of an aside. Through Scott's research, he figured out that to kind of reset the system and to keep it from crashing with leptin and whatnot, another hormone we have that's stored in fat cells, you basically had to consume 55 calories per pound of body weight. 55 calories per pound of body weight. So let's just say on one of these cheat days, 20,000 calories. Now, if they say there's 3,500 pounds in a pound of fat, 3,500 calories, in a pound of fat, you're looking at essentially 5+ pounds of fat I should gain on that cheat day. Now, my weight would go up 12 to 13 pounds on those days. So that was Sunday. What we'd look for is by Wednesday, was my weight back down or below where I started at the week prior? If so, biofeedback indicated let it rock and roll for another cheat day. And then there was times when I added in the half cheat day to keep the system going. But I wasn't gaining 5 pounds of fat. And there's a couple of mechanisms behind that, which I'll go over next. Now, the math doesn't work out, and I have a challenge for you before I give you my theory, which has worked for me and hundreds of people that have gone through my program. Allow them the flexibility to never have to count calories again and never worry about it again. If you figure out your maintenance calories, right? So what are you eating currently to maintain a stable body weight? Let's say, to make the math simple, that's 2,000 calories. And a calorie, by the way, is a tremendous amount of energy. I have good buddies that are electricians, and they also use the measure of a calorie for energy. My one buddy said, Kyle, a 10-calorie shock. Like if you touch a 10-calorie live wire, it could potentially kill you. 10 calories. So think about how amazing that is, how much energy the body actually requires on a daily basis, even if you're not a big eater. Figure out your maintenance calories, so 2,000. Now I challenge you over the next month, double that. Okay, double that. So let's say in that example, we're looking at 2,000 extra calories a day. So now you're eating 4,000. 230, that's 60,000 extra calories for the month. That should equate, off the top of my head, in the 15-pound weight gain range. Tell me if you put on 15 pounds of fat over the course of the month. Now, it's particularly if you're training too. You won't. But the math says you should. And I totally understand on the very surface level why people think this with calories. Will it work initially? Yes. You might lose weight initially, depending how much metabolic damage you have. If you wrecked your metabolic machinery like I did, which I was able to fix by these crazy diets year after year, then you could cut all you want, and a lot of times you won't see any movement. I have a lady that went through one of my early programs at the Panda Challenge. She had lost 1 pound. She came to me from a program she was doing 1,100 calories a day for 40 days. She lost 1 pound. Said, I've done everything. I don't think anything will work. In my program, she lost 19 pounds. She'd been through menopause twice. Now, the factor you have to look at, that calories are a secondary or tertiary factor. So they matter somewhat, but it is not the thing to focus on. I'm telling you. And keep this in mind, food is a drug. It affects the internal biochemical and hormonal environment of the body. Now, what environment are those calories entering into as well? What hormonal environment are they entering into? Obviously, if you're chronically stressed, you eat, there's a different response than if you're nice and calm when you eat. What happens to that food? How is it digested? Because in the stress state, right, the hormones are going to be different. So you got to really look at the hormones. The reason it'll work in the short term is you're producing less insulin. This is my theory and what I believe to be true through all my readings and experimentation. You're producing less insulin. Plain and simple. Insulin's the most anabolic hormone in the body. It tells your body to build. Most of the time it's telling your body to build fat. Now, what I teach and what I've learned myself and have experimented with and coach on, use the powers of insulin on both ends of the spectrum. Limit it the majority of the time. Limit it the majority of the week. Keep it low. Fat loss will be better. When it's time to feast, especially again if you're training and training appropriately, use the anabolic effect of insulin to build muscle. Again, this is what I've seen. Whereas the person that's doing the regular type of program, playing the calorie game and lifting, if they try to lose fat, it's almost impossible for them to put on muscle. With this, I've seen that it's totally possible, and it's actually the regular from what I see. So insulin. And if you go back to the video I put up prior to this one, Don't make the mistake of thinking you have to limit your carbohydrate intake when you break your feast. Break your fast with your feast, I should say. So it comes down to insulin. And I'll give you one last anecdotal story. And I don't care, throw your science out the window. If you're like one of these people that needs a PhD backed research paper, double blind, placebo, knick-knack, this, that, to even wipe your ass, then I'm not your guy. But I'm telling you what works. And I take empirical evidence over anything. Every day of the week. Again, they're not studying what I'm doing, what I've been doing with clients. They don't study this. They'll study like a 16-hour fast. They'll study very short-term, long-term fasting. Not somebody that's been doing this for 6 years straight. Now, the first summer when I was doing this, 2019, I was still tracking everything. I started that summer about 2,200 calories. And I said, okay, I can do the long form fasting. I've been doing 16 to 18-hour fasts for 5 years prior. Weight's coming down. Started at 249 and 16.5% body fat that summer. Weight's coming down. Let me bump the food up. Let me start playing around with this. Get to the point where I was doing between 3,800 and 4,100 calories. And again, I have a huge appetite at my feast. Now that summer I was doing a 48. I did a 72 pretty much every week. 72s, I've got videos out there. They're very powerful for many reasons. Right? I essentially almost got to the point where I was doubling my caloric intake, and I lost 25 pounds. My body fat went from 16, whatever I said, 5'9", I forgot the paperwork somewhere, down to 6'5". If it's all about the calories, that shouldn't have happened. There's a better way. Stop playing the old model of calories in, calories out. It's propaganda that's put out there really to keep you just chasing your tail. It's misinformation, and people just repeat it because that's what they were taught in their certification or the university. It doesn't work, guys. And my definition of it working is you can do it. It's functional, sustainable. You can do it forever, and it'll continue to work forever. The fasting, once you hit your set point, now your skin starts to change. Your joints feel better. There's brain health. They actually refer to dementia and Alzheimer's as type 3 diabetes. Insulin is the main factor. That's where you got to look at. All right, I hope you guys really enjoyed this video. Don't forget to hit the like, subscribe, leave a comment for me. I'll be back for more, and check the pinned comment if you want to check out what I do in my upcoming Panda Challenge.